Welcome to Wils Bach's Song Pod, a show where we dig deep into the songs and artists that move us and how we're moved to craft the songs we write. I'm Tim Wils Bach, and I write, release, and perform music as Wils Bach, and you can find me anywhere you stream music. Let's dig in. My guest today is a West Coast singer-songwriter originally from the East Coast, an incredible guitar player, a graduate of Berklee College of Music, and has toured nationally. He's been featured in Paste Magazine, Voyage LA, and has won several awards for his musicianship. He recently released How to Write a Pop Song. It's a well-crafted modern pop song that delivers some lighthearted, side-eyed shade about what hits with popular audiences these days. He followed that single up with a cover of a Beatles classic, the George Harrison penned Norwegian Wood, which he added a guitar solo to. Welcome to Wils Bach's Song Pod, Dylan Galvin. How are you today, buddy?
I'm doing well.
Excellent. Where does this podcast find you today?
This finds me in sunny Los Angeles, California, Woodland Hills, and on about hour 35 of no sleep. I had a not the greatest night of sleep last night, so I didn't sleep. So I'm a little slow and loopy, but the good thing about that is that can segue into, I have a single coming out on May 29th called The Human Condition. And that song was inspired by a series of events that started with a long bout of insomnia. So, it's kind of like, I don't know. I guess it's subconscious marketing of the single.
There you go. Let's talk about that, the How to Write a Pop Song single. So that's, like I said in the intro, that's a pretty well-crafted pop song, and it's pretty accurate, I think, lyric-wise on how to write a pop song.
Every time I release a song, I do the traditional release strategy. Like, I have a social media content strategy. I submit to Submit Hub and Groover and Muso Soup, and I hit up radios and playlists. I send it out, and it's kind of funny. Some of the feedback I got from some of the pop playlisters, it seems they weren't too appreciative of the lyrics. They felt it stung them a little bit too close to home, I guess, because like some people were like, I actually submitted it to a songwriting competition, and some of the judges were like, well, I don't know why you have to say, negative things about pop music, because it's like, well, I mean, most of it sucks. And the thing that I don't like is that it garners so much attention, and the value in the artistry of the song is not proportional to the attention that it gets. Like, it's totally inverted. And it's almost like parallel with the food industry in that 100 years ago, everything was organic, right? There was no such thing as artificial sweeteners. It was just, everything was organic. Yeah. Everything was farm grown. And slowly everything was corporatized and productized. And everyone was like, how can I make a little money by taking these things and adding other things so I can make more money than if I didn't add the things, because the goal is money. And, after 50, 70 years of doing that, then what you're left with is things that are not really food. I mean, they're edible. They're not necessarily toxic, but it's not really food. It's food-like product. And I think that's exactly what the music industry has done. They have slowly gone from something, and they've tried to kind of capitalize on the mystique of an artist and actual artistry and manufacture that to an audience that is, perpetually less discerning than the previous generation. And now we have music like product, and it's gone full force, because now we have AI creating songs where there's nothing real about it. It's just totally fake. And we now have to compete with that. But I think the one step down from that is kind of, I'm just going to rag on him. There's a song called Unholy by Sam Smith. And Sam Smith is a very talented singer. He's one of the best singers. But something that is like really popular to do now is like the singer gets all the credit, and they have like a team of 12 to 15 people writing a song. And it's like, when you have 15 people writing a song, nothing about that song is genuine. It's just totally sterilized. You have too many cooks in the kitchen, and you can't say anything real or authentic, because they're all just trying to create something for maximum visibility and appeal to the lowest common denominator. Like, don't put any big words, don't put any complex chords, don't put any chromatic notes. Keep it simple and smooth and
Right.
vanilla, and make it catchy, and the theme simple and appeal to the basal instincts of people. And I just wanted to like roll that all into a ball and just like throw it into the ocean. So that's basically,
Yeah.
and I feel like I did it in kind of like a lighthearted way with how to write a pop song. There's more cynical versions, like Bo Burnham did a song called Repeat Stuff, which is like super cynical.
Uh,
And I was dabbling in that, but I wasn't going full on cynic. I was just kind of like lightheartedly, because it is a pop song, and I do
right.
like pop. I still like pop, and I like the kind of some of the memories I have associated with pop and just the lightheartedness of it sometimes. But I think where I, as an artist, get weary of it is where it's just so pervasive and it's so ubiquitous everywhere you look. It's just pop, 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 pop. It's like, what about jazz? Maybe it'd be nice if we get some jazz or maybe some fusion or some anything other than, the same Billboard songs every time you go anywhere. And I think that's what, so when people say that, oh, I hate pop, I don't think it's like they hate pop, but they get annoyed by, they're not trying to seek it out and it pops up in front of them.
Chorus has gotta be big, thoughts have got to be small. So love it above, baby crazy, now you got it all. If you think too hard, you will get it wrong. You got to stay nice and stupid if you wanna write a pop song.
I came across an article. I wish I could find it again. I might have to take a look for it. But it was, and I'm probably gonna bungle what it actually said. But my
Yeah.
memory of it is that basically in the last however long, 20, 15 years, whatever it is,
Mhm.
you used to be able to look at melodies of popular music, and
Mhm.
they kind of run the gamut of
Yeah.
notes essentially
Yep.
throughout the scale. And as we've gotten closer to today, they've tightened and tightened and tightened, and it's almost like, and I think I remember them specific. You know what? It might have been an Andrew Huang video on
Mhm.
YouTube. Anyway, but the point was, he was saying basically they're very. It's almost like a straight line now. It's just you hit the note. A lot of times it's the two, and you just hang on that, and you maybe vary up or down a little bit, but you don't want to stray too far from it, because audiences today, they kind of know what they know. And
Yeah.
you write on the 1 4 5 6, and then
Yep.
that's all there is to it, and
I,
there's no room for nuance, because audiences are. I disagree with this, but
yeah.
the popular sentiment is, audiences, they can't be trusted to, to have any more nuanced taste than just those very basic building blocks, and just keep repeating those things. So,
Mhm. It's like it's funny. I think I might have actually cited that study in my press release for the single.
oh, oh no way.
Yeah, because there was a study done that it was the reduction of melodic variation, harmonic variation, and lyrical content. Like, the same thing is happening with lyrics too, where
Yeah,
we had all these words and prose, and it just keeps reducing till like we're down to like fifth grade. And it's
right,
like, don't use a complex word, because if you use a complex word, there's 10,000 people out there that don't know that word, and then the profit
right,
margin goes down 0.5%. And you don't want to alienate anyone. It's like, no, alienate them. Like, write what is good and true, and if a person doesn't get it, then let them go. And I feel like the music industry has made listeners lazy listeners. They don't know how to listen anymore, because something that was so good about music 40 years ago, you could open up a CD and look at the liner notes and the lyrics, and you would have to sit and kind of look at it like a puzzle, and you'd have to figure it out, and you'd go over it over and over. You might listen to a song 50 times before you finally go, oh, that's what that lyric means. Like, I totally get it now. But it's only within the context of the rest of the song that I finally understand it. And the artist was intentionally doing that. They were putting complexity and euphemisms and double entendres, not necessarily like sexual, but they were being clever with the way they were writing, and they were putting their intelligence into it. Now it's like, don't do anything, you don't want to lose them. So it's like,
right.
you're basically open up your diary of you as a 12-year-old, and you made me so sad, you broke my heart, and we're in a car and we go to the bar, and it's like
Yeah.
keep it super simple and appeal to emotion, and I I can't stand it.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, I'm with you. I have a deeper my taste runs a little more deep
yeah,
than that kind of stuff. That said, I don't wanna, and you said you like pop music too, but there's
yeah,
something to be said about that simple stuff. It's not easy to write a song that connects with a large audience, and it's as an intelligent person that's studied music and lyric and the stuff that you appreciate and that I appreciate has a lot more depth to it. It's hard to
hmm
understand how somebody can listen to, and I was like, baby, 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 no. I'm like, baby, 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 no. And that's a song that people connect
yeah,
with. And you're like,
yeah,
wait, what are you listening to? What are you grabbing onto? There's nothing there.
yeah,
There's this, I don't know. You may have seen this. There's a meme going around a few years ago, and it's got a picture of Frank Sinatra and then
uh-huh.
a picture of Justin Bieber. And I don't mean to pick on Justin Bieber because I think he was 13 at this time. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
whatever. But like, it's got a lyric, and next to the picture of Frank, it says, "With each word, your tenderness grows, tearing my fear apart, and that laugh that wrinkles your nose, it touches my foolish heart." And then beneath that, there's a picture of Justin Bieber, and it says, "And I was like, baby, 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 no." I'm like, baby, 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 no. I'm like, baby,
yeah,
baby, baby, no. And like
yeah.
again, it's poking fun, and it's obviously reductive, but still, it's to the point that you're making is
Yeah,
kind of
there is the tendency is that as you get older, you kind of think that your generation was the best and music
right.
was, those are the good old days. But like aside from all that, like there is an objective decline, like a scientifically verifiable
For
reduction
sure.
that
Yeah.
that's like totally independent of like the bias of you getting older. So, yeah, I felt compelled as a songwriter. It's like, is it? I feel like that movie Zoolander.
Uh-huh. The tiny
You know,
phone.
Will Ferrell plays the crazy guy Mugatu, and he's like
Uh-huh.
when he's like Blue Steel, La Tigra, like it's all the same look. I feel like I'm taking crazy pills here. Like that's what I feel like when I'm listening to these songs. I'm like, this sounds just like this song, which sounds like that song. It's like the same song again, and people are like, oh, it's so great.
Well, it's interesting too because we're in this time where basically the history of recorded music is available
Mhm,
to us at the click of a button at
mhm.
home, in the car, on the bus, the beach, wherever you are. There's good music being made. I don't know if
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of Dawes. Taylor Goldsmith is an incredible lyric writer.
Uh-huh.
So there's music to be found that kind of
Mhm,
scratches that itch. But yeah, it's a question of like why does the popular culture not dig into that anymore, especially when we have you can go, you don't have to listen to new music. You could
mhm.
dial into whatever's I have a 14-year-old son who and I love him so much, but I do not love his musical taste, and he's stuff
Yeah,
that he listens to is whatever.
yeah,
That's his thing. And part of it is he's probably trying to listen to something different than his dad does. But he's got
yeah.
one of his buddies. He's like one of his buddies listens to classic rock all the time. I'm like, yes, great. That's
Cool.
I'm a fellow
Yeah,
old guy here, but I'm like, yeah,
yeah.
that's the good stuff, man. Listen to that, and that's great that he can do that. He's got, he's not relying on tight playlists on a radio station anymore. He's digging into, I don't know how he found it or how he got into it, but it's available to him. So it's just an interesting observation.
It's something to encourage you also. I think 70 or 80% of all the music that is consumed today is actually old music.
Oh, interesting.
People are gravitating towards the old stuff still, which is like I'm like, okay, cool.
Okay, so that song, that's almost like your what anti inspires you, right? Like
Yeah.
who are the songwriters that do inspire you, that are putting out things that do kind of fill you up a little.
I'm a really big fan of John Mayer because he's one of the few I think who has gotten totally in the mainstream, like been in the mainstream in the pop world, but he's been able to introduce a mainstream audience to subgenres that are not typically mainstream or are no longer mainstream, like Americana and folk and blues, and he's able to still stay a storyteller. He's
Uh-huh.
able to balance listenability with still bringing his musicianship and complexity into it. He's got a song called St. Patrick's Day. I think there's like 40 or 50 chords in it,
Oh
um,
wow.
which is really 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 cool. I like John Mayer. I listen to
Speaking of John Mayer,
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. I like his specifically his Continuum record. I think has some
Oh,
really amazing stuff on it, and specifically "Belief," the song "Belief." The lyric on that is incredible.
that's one of the ones I was thinking of. Yeah,
Yeah,
belief is an beautiful armor, but makes for the heaviest sword. Like punching
yeah,
underwater, you never can hit who you're trying for. I think that's a very. I like. I wish sometimes I'm like, John Mayer, pick a side. Come on, let's hear what you really feel. Because he always he stands neutral and he observes society
uh-huh.
going after each other, but he never gets too far one way or the other. I think that's a PR move. But sometimes I want to hear him come out guns a blazing because some songwriters just do that. They're like, I don't care. I don't care if I offend half of the world. I'm going to say this.
Yeah.
I like when artists are willing to be brave like that. So I
There's
understand.
also
Yeah,
something to be said for being a little general and letting whatever side you're on, and finding that message
yeah,
in the lyric. It's vague enough, but there's enough there that you can attach to, right? Like
yeah.
Yeah,
If you could pick your side, but your side isn't one of their sides. It's like you define where you stand, and then you observe the situation in a way where you declare without just kind of stonewalling half of all people,
yeah.
which I think is good. I think a good songwriter can do that. Paul Simon, James Taylor, great lyric writers. And then film scores. I love film scores because
Okay.
they can't use lyrics to get the emotion. They have to get the emotion with just the music.
Yeah.
So I love kind of taking little elements here and there of film scores I like and trying to integrate that into my writing. Sometimes more
Yeah.
subtle, sometimes less.
So let me ask you that, based on what you just said about film scores. So when you're sitting down to write a song,
Mhm.
what comes first for you? Is it the music? Is it the lyric? Is it maybe it's different every time? Like, how do you approach that?
I prefer to have the lyrics first as a lyricist because I got to meet Paul Simon when I was at Berklee,
Oh, that's cool.
and one of the things he said, it was like, if you have to choose between making a melody that sounds pleasant and sacrificing what you want to say, or saying what you want to say and sacrificing the melody, always sacrifice the melody. The words are more important. That was from the mouth of Paul Simon, and I totally believe that, and that is so counter to today, where they say, oh, just write a melody and like see what words you feel like saying once you've written the melody. I'm like, that is I just don't
Yeah,
like that.
it's backwards.
It's totally
Yeah,
backwards, and you don't. I feel like the main point of a song is to convey meaning. It's to tell a story. It's to share something true. And if you do it backwards, it's almost like the way that people look at songs now is the way they kind of judge women. It's like, well, what does she look like with makeup on, all done up, ready to go out? Well, that's how much she's worth. And
yeah,
nothing else. Not her character, not what she likes or dislikes. Just what does she look like up front, right there on the spot. That's exactly how people are listening, and I'm just
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, that was cool to
It's
hear.
easy. It's easy to fall into that trap too. At least I know for me. And part of that is where we're at now. I'm sitting in front of my computer here. I've got my MIDI controller over here, and I can dial up Logic, and I can dial
Yeah,
in an amazing, drum beat, and I can
yeah,
have a like pretty slickly produced song
yeah,
almost quicker than I can, not almost, like quicker than I can really write the lyric. And it's
yeah,
really easy to just to run with that, because that's kind of the easy and the fun part, right? And
yeah,
then
exactly.
I'll deal with the lyric later, and I'll get what I'm trying to say. And the songs that are the best for me are the ones that I start with with a notebook and a pen and a paper, sitting on my couch, reflecting on something that's bugging me, or something that's inspired me, or whatever that impetus comes from. Is as long as when it starts with the lyric or the
Yeah,
emotion, it's always better than the production. It's kind of what you're saying with
yeah,
judging a book by its cover, kind of thing. So that's
yeah.
an interesting take. I like that.
A person that listens to a song and listens for the lyric, they will ultimately, in the long run, I think, enjoy the song more than a person who just listens to melody or beat, because there's an instinctual, immediate gratification of listening to melody and beat. It's like flavor, right? Flavor's
Yeah,
good, but nutrition keeps you alive. There's a, it's like if you just go for flavor all day, every day, every time you eat something, I just want flavor, I just want flavor, you'll just start to not feel good all the time because you're not getting anything good in your body. And I think there's a parallel to that with music. If you're just going for what sounds good, you can enjoy that, but it just doesn't have the same kind of depth that a really powerful lyric has, especially when you have to think about the lyric. And that's one thing where I always butt heads against the cultural narrative about like music should make you feel. Now, I'm not saying it shouldn't make you feel, it should, but music should also make you think. And no one ever says that. Literally, I never hear it in any interview on any podcast. They go, well, I just listen to what makes me feel, and you want to make the audience feel like, well, don't think. We really need people to think more today. Like we totally need that. And that's something that made the folk songwriters like the rebels of the 60s, those rebel songwriters, they call out the government, they call out injustice. They would sing about these things and they would challenge people to think them through using the gift of prose and lyricism and poetry. But now it's like, nah, just go with the wave. Like get as much attention as you can and make that dollar before they turn to something else. And it's a challenge. It's a challenge because for what you said, the way that you create, like the lyric, I think the lyric is usually the hardest part also. Yeah. And
you still have to find that emotion and connect to that too.
Yeah,
that's the trick. Yeah, make it cerebral if that's your thing. And I think you and I are the same, and that's the kind of stuff that we gravitate to. But whether it's a deep amount of prose or it's a very simple message, those can both be effective as long as they're communicating the message and they're connecting to the audience in a certain way. But
totally, I think the best song is a song that makes you feel and makes you think, and they kind of run synergistically in the song, and then you can listen to it over and over again, and rather just feel an emotion, you kind of get reflective, or it just draws something out. And that's another thing that I think John Mayer is very good at. He's very good at making you just nailing you with it. There's just a lyric here, a lyric there in his songs that really get you. Stop This Train. I don't know if you've heard that one.
Yeah, that's a good one too. Yeah, really good.
It's like
about aging parents, right?
Yeah. When I hear that, he's like, I don't know how else to say it. Don't want to see my parents go one generation's length away from fighting laugh out on my own. When I'm like driving in my car and I hear that, I'm like,
yeah, ultimately relatable, right? Yeah, interesting. So yeah, he's I'm also big on first lines, like the intro to the song, kind of something that sets the scene. I read something last week at a friend posted, and it was Bono, for whatever reason, is writing letters to, like, kind of open letters to people. And this one he was writing to Prince, and this is after Prince has passed. But part of the letter, he says, "You're a master of the establishing shot," right? And then he's quotes, "Dig, if you will, this picture. You and I engaged in a kiss," right? Or, "I was working part-time in the Five and Dime. My boss was Mr. McGee," right?
Yeah,
or, "You don't have to be beautiful to turn me on." John Mayer has a good one too. So again, going back to belief, is there anyone who ever remembers changing their mind from the paint on a sign? Like, boom, like, immediately. You might not know like fully what it's about, but like from that beginning, you're in. So I guess my question to you then is, how much do you focus on that, that scene set, that opening line? Is that a thing for you or not so much?
That has become increasingly important now. And that's one of those things where I think the culture, the direction of the culture has actually been beneficial, because you are forced to be able to immediately grab attention, or else just people won't listen to anything unless it immediately gets them. And I have a tendency to want to get to the good stuff like halfway down the song. And I think that can be sometimes like artistic laziness. And I'm kind of like, well, they let them listen to like 3 or 4 verses before. It's like, no, it's good to be able to just like slam them in the face from the very first line. And you should treat every single line is important. It's kind of like Twitter. Like, Twitter is actually really good in that it forces you to very pithily say what you need. You have to learn how to say something and like say it in the most efficient way possible. Right. And our songwriting teacher, I think a couple of them at Berklee, made us do that. They're like, okay, say something and you have a whole line to say it. They're like, okay, say that same thing but now you only have 10 words. Say the
Yeah.
same thing. Now you only have 5 words. Say the same thing. Now you only have 3. And you're like, how can I say it in 3 words?
Yeah.
But it, like, you just never think about that. You're so used to kind of your own linguistic cadence and kind of like jogging with information at your own pace. And it forces you to stop and like really, okay, the next step you take, it has to be a very important step. So don't say a word that you don't need. And when you do that, you go back through your song. You're like, oh, I totally reiterated myself twice in verse 2. I said the same thing
Right.
2 different ways, so I can eliminate line 2 and say something else there or rearrange
Yeah.
it. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's a really good thing.
Even just going back and doing rewrites and just looking for those spots where you're redundant or you're not saying the thing that you want to say. So you mentioned you studied at Berklee. Did you ever study under a guy named Pattison? Or do you know that? Do you know that name?
Hold on one second.
Yeah, you've got the book, Writing Better Lyrics.
Let's see if I have it. Oh, where is it? Where is it? Oh, oh, almost got it. Oh, you know what? Okay. Anyways, I didn't I have it somewhere. Oh, is this it? Is this it? Oh, yes. Woo! All kinds of I have his Writing Better Lyrics book, and I have this one, and this is like Olympic metaphor creation. Like, this will flatten you. Get this book immediately. It's called Songwriting Without Boundaries.
Okay.
So-
Excellent.
This is the most labor-intensive lyric writing book I have ever come across. He teaches you how to write in the key of moon.
Oh,
Right? You're like, what does that even mean? And then you start thinking of words that are in the key of moon, like astronaut, mysterious, far away, remote, glowing, controlling, tides, waxing, waning, eclipse. So it's like something you can use in your song. So like when you're telling your song, you lyrically stay in the same key. So the whole thing matches thematically rather than like, okay, this verse, I'm going to do a metaphor about this. And now I'm going to put a simile here. And then I'm going to start talking about like World War II over here and it keeps it like, formatted. But this, it gets so crazy. The exercises are just like, but
yeah.
yes, he was one of my teachers and he is like a mad scientist. He was,
If I remember correctly, he's the one that introduced me to object writing. Is that's him, right? Yeah.
yes. Yep.
And for anybody listening that doesn't know what object writing is, it's basically you kind of reflect back on a time or a place, and it's a specific thing in that place. Like I remember the first time that I did it. My dad and my mom used to have this. It looked like a treasure chest.
Mm-hmm.
It's wooden, and it had like these metal like hasps on it, and like it kind of looked like a treasure chest, but I think it was a jewelry box. It ended up just being a place where they kept stuff in their room, right? So and it was always fascinating to me as a little kid, and I've always had this picture of this thing in my memory. And so like the idea would be just put pen to paper for however 20 minutes or whatever, and just describe that item, where it is, how it exists, how you reacted to it, just kind of explore that whole thing. And it's just a really good exercise about how to paint a picture of a time or a place or a thing. Right? I mean, am I getting that right? It's been a while since I've read about it, but
that's pretty much it. I mean, you basically take your 5 senses, touch, smell, taste, sound, sight, and you write. You pick an object from your childhood. It could be bowling ball, it could be grass, it could be jewelry box or treasure chest or bed, and you go back to that memory. You go back to the memory. You picture it in your head, and you start writing. What did the jewelry box smell like? What did it taste like? And maybe you wouldn't taste a jewelry box, but were you chewing on a Tootsie Roll while you were in that memory? And so you want to take the listener through the medium of only text and transport them as accurately as possible into what you have envisioned in your mind. And it's such a good exercise. I mean, it's very gratifying to when you do it day after day, and it's almost like an exercise in nostalgia, because you get to go through like actual childhood experiences and remember them.
Right.
And I love that.
Yeah.
Totally love that.
Yeah, and that in itself too is also maybe a little excavation too. Like maybe you're as you're digging
Mm-hmm.
around in that memory about this just kind of benign thing, it might
Mm-hmm.
trigger some other memory in you that
Yeah.
brings up an emotion that you want to explore, that you can, as you know, as being the craftsman, as a songwriter, you can then, build up and turn into an emotional song that resonates and connects with the people that you're singing to. So, and I
Yeah.
also for whatever reason, I remember putting puppies to sleep, from
Yes.
right.
The sleeping puppies. There was something about metaphors, having boring metaphors, like cliche
Yeah.
metaphors, like we're going through the storm together. It's like, because it's not a bad idea, but it's like so many people have done the idea that
Right.
it loses. The more people do the same thing, it's almost like there's a collective draining of the energy of that idea until they forget about it. It has to
Yeah.
recharge over 40 years, and then people will go, "Oh yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do that again."
I remember hearing a lyric one time, some local artist who I don't exactly remember, but one of her lyrics was, "The snow falls down like rain." I'm like, come on, you, you gotta,
Yeah,
you,
it's like
you gotta,
it also
you
falls down
gotta
like
keep
snow.
you gotta keep
Yeah,
workshopping that one. You can't just that. I mean, I
yeah,
get it, like get it on the page, but that's one to
yeah.
rewrite for sure. Um, Here's a question. So I have a list
Yeah.
of questions. I probably should have sent you these
Cool.
beforehand, so you could have prepared a little bit. But maybe
That's
this is a
okay.
little more fun to just be
Spur of the
in
moment.
your sleep deprived state. Just
Yeah, we
be
got baby paraphernalia all over the
yeah,
room. The little smushmallow or whatever it is.
yeah. Is there a song in the popular? Well, I might have an idea since you just released a cover. Maybe this
Mhm.
is it. Maybe it isn't. Is there a song that you wish you'd written? A famous song that people know that you wish you'd, or maybe not famous, but is there a song that you wish you'd written?
A song that I wish I wrote. That is a very good question that I have not thought about.
Yeah.
Um,
What spoke to you about Norwegian Wood to the point that you wanted to cover that?
my dad bought me Rubber Soul for like my 12th birthday as a CD. It was like one of the first CDs I ever had. And
Uh
this is
huh.
like, late 90s, I think. So I had a boombox. I put it in
Yeah.
my boombox. I would just listen to it over and over and over. And that was one of the songs that I liked because it was so different than the rest of Rubber Soul. Rubber Soul had a lot of kind of like pop rock, alt rock, and I guess Michelle was also kind of like an acoustic ballad, but it was just this weird, jolly. It was almost whimsical, like little gnomes frolicking in the woods. It just had this very whimsical vibe to it, and the lyrics were mysterious, and I never really knew what it was about. And it's ironic because I'm totally about knowing what the lyrics are about. But that was one of those songs where it's kind of about the nostalgia of it, and that it was like my happy place song.
I told her I did it and crawled off to sleep in the back.
So what's on repeat right now for you?
Last night I listened to a lot of Japanese lo-fi.
Oh,
Um,
okay. I don't even know
I-
what that would mean. I have no idea what that would sound like.
so lo-fi is kind of like this. If you're listening to instrumental hip hop with no lyrics,
Okay.
and you're underwater and you're about to fall asleep. You're just in this
Okay.
kind of cozy space, and there's like a cat in the windowsill and a TV playing static and like a candle flickering, and you can see out the window all the cars going by, and you kind of feel like you're underwater. That's like the vibe of lo-fi. It's kind of like this winding down kind of going into like peace mode before you sleep, but it's like it's rooted in hip hop, but it's like hip hop with very old school kind of sounds, like crackly record player, old keys, almost like ragtime sounding or jazz sounding.
Uh-huh.
And it's just so different than a lot of other music. It's a very specific genre. I love listening to that. I've been
It's
listening to
almost
a
like a
lot of that.
palate cleanser for what you're trying to listen to. Like it's kind of like
Yeah,
sniffing the coffee beans between different wine
yeah,
flights, whatever.
It's like taking a bite of ginger when you're having
Yeah,
sushi.
there you go.
Yeah, and Japanese lo-fi in particular, because they incorporate like traditional Japanese instruments into it. But lo-fi in general is a cool genre. I listen to a lot of ambient stuff just because when you're doing music so much, you kind of want to listen to music that doesn't feel like it's work.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, because your work mode brain, you go, oh, I could take that production idea, or that's a cool piano chord. Maybe I could. It's like, no, I need music that's so different than what I do that I just listen to it and I
yeah,
don't analyze it.
yeah. I listen to a lot of bebop, like bebop jazz.
Awesome.
Same kind of thing. Yeah, it's not something that I'm writing. I'm not a
Yeah.
virtuoso by any stretch. I'm a cowboy chord kind of writer.
Hmm.
But yeah, I dig it. It just there's a certain vibe about it. Just takes me back to.
You listen to Coltrane?
I love Coltrane. Yeah, so much.
Yeah. Naima?
Yeah, definitely. Giant Steps is a big one too.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, I love Coltrane. I did, and I got introduced to that kind of stuff. So there were two reasons. So I went to Indiana University, and I'm a television editor. That's what I do for a living, or what I used to
Cool.
do for a living. One of the
Yeah.
reasons I'm doing this podcast now is because Hollywood is not doing much of anything these days, and I've got all kinds of time. So this is a way to fill it.
Mm, awesome.
But anyway, while I was in college, I worked at the TV station there. It's kind of like a work study situation, and
Hmm.
just like kind of in the shop. And the guy that would run the shop, fixing lights or painting sets, or I don't even remember what we all did, setting stuff
Hmm.
up. But he had a little transistor radio, and he would always put on this jazz station, and it played that kind of stuff. And then
Yeah.
at the same time, I was also a theater major. Um, and I was in a play, and the soundtrack that they put together between scenes had a lot of John Coltrane in it. So that's how I was introduced to him, and just the combination of those two things, like, man, I
Yeah.
really dig this music. So,
Yeah,
um,
it's like there's something so sweet about listening to something on an AM radio. There's this
yeah,
like instant good vibes. I feel like lo-fi kind of has that vibe too, although it's not as nearly as virtuoso. It's kind of like take a snippet of Coltrane and like just a little snippet and like make that the basis of the whole song, and then just like slow and groovy like
yeah,
wave. But yeah, I think you'd like it.
yeah.
But yeah, I love that. I love that.
So you've got another single coming up. I
I
don't
do.
remember the name of it, but you mentioned it at the top. So let's talk about that a little bit.
This song is called "The Human Condition." And part of it is inspired by Michael Jackson wrote a song called "Human Nature,"
Uh huh.
and I cover that song. I love that song. I think it's a great song. It's beautiful. I wanted to take that idea and kind of translate it in a theological framework, like looking at it from the perspective of God and the human condition. The song is about, I was going through probably about 2 years of really intense insomnia. Like I wasn't getting really any sleep at all. I couldn't sleep. And this song was about someone who's going through incredible suffering, and they're looking for truth, and they don't want to admit to themselves what it is. They want to look everywhere else. And the tendency for people, I think there's a tendency, and you can just see online, everyone says that the problems that we have in our society, or the problem with this or the problem with that, is those people over there. It's always
Uh huh.
them. It's never me. And everyone wants to always externalize it, but part of it is like being willing to admit your own sin. Like, I'm a
Yeah.
sinner. I'm not a perfect person. I don't always do what's right, and I can't sit there and point out the problems of every person in the world and exempt myself morally and say, well, I'm a good person. I don't do anything wrong. But I think that's what our tendency is, and I had to kind of face that, the experience of going through the insomnia. And I started, my grandparents got me this little Bible. They went to Israel. They went to Jerusalem a while ago, and they got me this tiny little Bible. It was a King James Bible. So I don't know if you ever read a King James Bible, but it's kind of hard to understand. It's like, thou hast verily spake,
Uh huh.
it's old English. So it was
Sure.
challenging to read, but I started reading it, and I could understand enough of it to start kind of getting the framework of what would later be my faith. And the human condition is about that search, kind of that examination.
So you scream your heart out to the constellations, thinking God's a superstition. Sitting there waiting for some kind of deliverance from the human condition.
And it's made it kind of cinematic and ethereal.
All right, nice. So that one's in the can, and that's coming up next. What's the follow-up? What's next for you for Dylan?
The next song that I have in the books is a song called My Favorite To-Do List. I had a friend, I would say, pay me $10 and I'll write a custom song for you. It was actually from that. And I had a friend named Brielle, and she was like, write a song about how I'm going back to college. And so I wrote a song called My Favorite To-Do List. And it was about just being thankful during a season of life, like little things, cup of coffee, your little dog in the background, just like little things like that. And it's like kind of like an Americana folk song with a pedal steel
Nice.
in it. And that's the next one. And I'm excited. It's kind of like a fall song, but
Yeah.
whatever. I'm going to release it in the summer. Break the rules.
Yeah, why not?
So,
Break the rules. I like it.
exactly.
Excellent. Well, this has been a fun conversation. Thank you so much for joining me. I think we have a lot in common about how we approach songwriting, and this has been great. Thank you so much for spending some time with me.
Sweet.
Thanks for listening to Wils Bach's Song Pod. You've made it this far. Please rate, review, like, love, add, subscribe to all the things on whatever app it is that you're hearing my voice. That lets the almighty algorithm know that interesting people like you like this show, and will serve it up to other cool and interesting people. Wils Bach's Song Pod is produced by Wils Bach Entertainment, LLC. Mixed, mastered, and edited by me, Tim Wils Bach. See you next time.